This is the Breakfast Leadership Podcast. Boundaries or burnout, you make the choice. Here's your host, Michael Levitt.
Welcome back. I've got Paul Casey on the line. Hey, Paul, how are you?
Fantastic over here in Eastern Washington State.
That's great. It's actually, it was sunny in Toronto, which I know for a lot of people that are familiar with this area, that doesn't happen much at the time of this recording, which is in February. But I looked out the window just a few minutes ago before jumping on here, and it's snowing sideways. So the sun was a cameo appearance, and we're kind of used to that. That's why, for most of the year, I get my vitamin D out of a bottle, and whenever I can get to a sunny destination, I take advantage of that. So again, great for you to be on the show. And today I want to talk about, and you do a lot of different things. You've been speaking for quite a long time, and you talk about a lot of different things, leadership and whatnot. But today, I think one message I think that really resonates with you and with me as well is time management and really helping people take back control of their life, because I see too many people trying to do 20 hours of work in a 4-hour time span and not accomplish anything and make mistakes and hate life and are miserable, and then they go to bed and wake up and they do it all over again, and they're going, why is this not working? So let's talk about that today. So what interested you in learning about and talking about time management?
Well, it started way back with my mom being a teacher, and so she was always busy, always intentional with her time. Even while watching TV, she was making bulletin boards and grading papers. And so then I became a teacher, following in both my parents' footsteps. And we both have that industrious side of us. I teach 4 personality types, and it's the beaver style is the industrious one. And then when I was in my first job as a teacher, my principal saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, and that was leadership. And he asked me to be his vice principal part-time and teach PE half the day. And I thought, wow, that's a stretch. Didn't ever have that pictured in my mind. And one day I walked into his office. His office looked like a bomb hit it, just piles all over the place. I don't even know how he was organized at all. And I said, hey, can I take a shot at that? And he's like, sure, go knock yourself out. I'm going on a conference. So I put everything in piles by reading material and memos, the day of memos, and other kinds of like invoices, the stuff that was overdue and past due. And it came back and like, ta-da, presented it all to him. Now you can be productive. Well, it just took a few weeks before he was back to his old ways. But I did find something that day, Michael, that was life-changing. And that was this pamphlet called The Organized Executive. And it was a time management pamphlet about 8 pages long, and it was all these time management hacks, and I totally nerded out on it. And so every time I read it, he said I could have it, and every time I read it, I got a new hack, and I would try it out to see if it worked while I was in leadership. And just over time, I just kept studying it and just kept getting drawn to helping people with their time management.
I remember seeing that document a while ago, and it's timeless. And it's even in this day of instant everything, online access, smartphones and whatnot, the principles are there, and it's crucial for people to learn the hacks that work for them. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people, when they first hear somebody say, okay, in time management, they think, okay, here's this, turn your keyboard at 90 degrees, do this, have your mouse approximately 8 inches from here. And, it's like, no, let's meet them where they're at and figure out, okay, this is what works for you. Like for me, I tell people successful mornings, and I say, start your day off the right way. But a lot of people think, okay, you want me to get up at 4 a.m. and go to the gym and do this and this. Like, no, if you should be active. If you want to work out in the morning, great. If you're better at working out in the evening or in the afternoon, great. Whatever works for you, but use something that works for you. And the same thing with managing your time is figuring out how to manage it. So, what are some of the things that you teach people about how to approach better, management of their time?
Yeah, I have a model called the Fulcrum Framework for Focus. A lot of F words, but they're all positive ones. And the Fulcrum concept is of a teeter-totter. I went to a seminar years ago about burnout, and it was a guy that was totally burned out. He had to go to a monastery even to sort of flush and defrag and just be silent forever. He said he only escaped once to look at his phone, but it was pretty funny seminar that he did. But it was serious, it was serious. And I know you talk on burnout too. And so he said, it's not work-life balance. So picture the teeter-totter, work on one side, life on the other. You'll never get it completely balanced because in 3 seconds, you'll be off balance again. But he said, think about the fulcrum. Slide it to work or to life where it's needed most. And try, don't do it equally, just do it where it's needed most. So I've taken that little fulcrum or that triangle and made a model out of that where you start with the foundation and then you determine what matters most. What are your priorities? Then how do you set up your calendar, some habits for your calendar, and then you move towards daily managing that. That's the self-discipline of just staying on top of it. And then how do you avoid those barriers or those interrupters or distractors in your life? Because as soon as you make a plan, life punches you in the face. So you've got to have a responsive plan. So the first step, if you want to get to the hacks right away, the ones that changed my life, the first one was to, at the end of today, plan out your top 3 priorities for tomorrow. And it becomes sort of this daily review. If you work 9 to 5, it would be the 4:30 preview, some people call it. Whatever that last 30 minutes is before you call it a day. And you take that time and you stop what you're doing and you say, my day is over. Now let's look at tomorrow. What are my 3 things that I just have to get done? I'd be frustrated if I didn't get these 3 things done tomorrow. And by doing that, you are able to now transition into your life of your hobbies or your family. And then you go to sleep, thinking tomorrow, I know when I get to work, I've got a plan. And your brain actually works on stuff while you're sleeping. So you actually get an additional benefit. And sometimes in the shower, you wake up with a great idea like, aha, I know what I'm going to do. And it's because you've been thinking about it all night subconsciously. So that's my first one.
Yeah, those are crucial. And I find the same thing where, when you're thinking about something, and even for me, occasionally I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll go, oh, that thought came to mind. Where'd that come from? So I'll write it down. I don't try to,
Yes.
go to the computer or anything like that. I just let me just write a note and a couple things. So tomorrow morning when I, fully wake up, I can look at the note and go, all right, what did I write there? I used to work in healthcare. So my handwriting kind of adopted after doctors. So occasionally I look at it, I'm like, what in the world does that say? And I don't remember. I'm like, I'll keep it and maybe it'll come to me. Otherwise, well, it's gone in the ether forever. But I do that because then it's like, okay, there's something there. That clarity came about because of me calming myself enough to be able to have that thought come to mind. That's, like you hear and you use the analogy in the shower, ideas come to mind. And it's when you're in that state where you are, you're pretty much present. I mean, although some of us, I'm sure, go on autopilot when we, take our showers and whatnot, but your mind is, working through some things and it'll flush it out. And it actually makes, great sense when, those things come on. So, yeah. So what are some of the other techniques that you utilize?
Yeah. The second one I would say is, to make appointments with yourself. This was a game changer. It's also called time blocking by many other productivity experts, but it's where I didn't like the legal pad of to-do list, which most people have. I saw it as sort of a I don't want to do list. And so I would only look for the things on there that were easy or fun, and just to cross those off and get that shot of dopamine, as I went, and cross that thing off my list. But I wasn't getting the big things done. So I don't know where I heard the idea, but it was to actually go into your calendar, take that thing on your to-do list and put it in a time block, 9:00 a.m. I am going to start writing performance review on Jenny, or whatever that is. And you overestimate the time it's going to take to do it and make the block. And then when that comes at 9:00, you drop everything, unless there's somebody in your face, and you actually do that task as if you were meeting someone in a coffee shop, which of course you would never stand somebody up intentionally in a coffee shop and go, I'm not going to come, and then you would lose friends or clients very easily if you did that. But why do we do this to ourselves? Why do we not respect ourselves enough to stick to those time blocks that we've carved out for ourselves? So that's a big one.
Yeah, the time block, and I do something similar, and the people I work with, an exercise. And again, and thank you for the lead in on the burnout topic, because yeah, it's typically who I work with is people that are either really burned out or rapidly approaching it. And one of the common things I see is they don't schedule time with themselves like you do. And the key thing that flushed out for me as well, not only are they not scheduling time with themselves, they're not doing things in life that they enjoy. They've just completely cut it out of their life.
Yeah.
So I have people exercise, whether it's in workshops or conferences or in one-on-one, because I have people take a sheet of paper and draw a vertical line down the middle of it. And on the left side, I have them list several things that they really enjoy doing. They love. It could be coffee shop, going to the movies, dinner with friends, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just list all the things that they look forward to and they enjoy, and they give them a few minutes. And then after that, I say, okay, now on the right side of those items, write down the last time you did them. And they moan every time in a room. It doesn't matter if there's 10 people or 1,000 people. I hear groans and moans, and those are self-reflecting because they realize I'm not doing things in my life that I like to do. And I ask them, why aren't you doing this? And they say, I don't have time. And I know they're going to say it. And I just I'm sitting back and okay. It's like I go to the store a lot, and I still haven't found that 26-hour clock anywhere. We all have the 24-hour edition, and thankfully I know how to do military time, working in healthcare for a bit. Most of the clocks in hospitals are that anyway. But ultimately, I said, okay, you need to start doing things in your life that you enjoy. And I use the exercise similar to booking an appointment with yourself is, okay, let's pick 2 things and let's find some time on your calendar in the next couple weeks and do those, and don't miss them. Don't push them off unless you absolutely have to. Go do that and start doing that again. And because it using your teeter-totter example, that goes hand in hand with that, because otherwise you're just all at work and you're on the ground. You're not doing anything. You're just sitting there or, decaying, quite frankly. So I love that exercise. It makes perfect sense. And I highly encourage people, take some time on your calendar and do stuff for you, whatever it happens to be, even if it's staring at a wall and not doing anything, just to reflect and look upon how, awesome your life is. Take that opportunity to do it.
That's really good. I do an activity too, probably similar to yours, where it's a sheet of what I want more in my life right now, and it's about 30 words, and it could be anything from affection to vision to energy or affirmation, whatever it is they need more of, and they circle as many words as just pops in their head that at that time, like, yeah, I feel a deficit in that area, and then I coach them through, like, how are you going to get that more in your life? A second exercise I'll do with them is what's your life 1 year from now? What do you want it to look like? Your 1-year vision. And boy, that's really powerful, because they haven't taken the time. Most people haven't taken the time to figure that out 1 year from now. And I said, dream big. What else can you put on there? And then we can sort of back into it with the time management strategies that will have them, you were just talking about intentionality is really what you were talking about, is how can you be intentional about getting to that blue sky state that you have now mapped out for your life.
That's a great exercise. And I tell people, when we do type goal planning and whatnot, and I tell them, yeah, go big, go absolutely insane big. And they say, well, I don't think I can hit that. So you don't know unless you try. And also you can, using a Steve Jobs analogy, okay, what do you want in a year? All right, work backwards. Where are you at now? Work backwards and figure out what steps you need to take. And I tell them, okay, let's say you get 80% of the way there. What's your life going to look like if you've hit 80% of the goal that you're approaching? And they say, my life would be absolutely transformed and amazing. Like, okay, That's awesome. That means you've got a really good goal, and you see it as being attainable. And I think that's a big thing. Yes, it's going to be a stretch, but as people know with diamonds, it's a rock, and okay, great, this is a rock. And well, once you refine it, then it turns into a very overpriced rock. But that's another story for another day. Okay, so what's the next step that you help people with?
I would say you need to front load those priorities. So it's the old, I have people do the old Stephen Covey quadrant. I think it's called the Eisenhower matrix. That's its official name, but it's the urgent important matrix, with the 4 quadrants. And the quadrant 2-1 is the one that's not urgent, but it's important. If you leave it for too long, it's going to bite you. If you choose to do it, it's going to move the ball forward, but no one is in your face yelling at you to write a thank you note, or professionally develop today. It's just sort of funny to think about someone running in and telling you to do that. There's nothing urgent about it, but boy, are they important tasks. So I tell people to put those into your calendar first, and definitely front load into the morning, because we're all procrastinators at some level. Hi, my name is Paul, and I'm a procrastinator. So even though I teach this stuff, I still procrastinate something almost every day, because it's hard. It's hard to have that self-discipline. But if we can get on it right away, most people's prime time is 10 to 12 in the morning. Not everybody, but most people say that's their most creative or critical thinking time to put their tasks, is just get at it right away. And it's going to start a positive snowball of productivity for the rest of the day. You'll be amazed at all the little things you get done when you've gotten your 3 big priorities done by that time. I really believe afternoons are runaway trains. I love that quote. Afternoons are runaway trains. And that's when you just keep dragging those big priorities into the afternoon. And then what happens? Your kid calls you from school saying, "You got to pick me up, Dad." You're like, or your boss says, "I need this by 5." And you start to freak out because now you're like, now I can't get my priorities done again. Loser, and you beat yourself up for procrastinating yet one more time. So if you front load in the morning, that's going to help you set that tone for productivity. I've even heard it said, make your bed first thing in the morning, because that 15-second task is going to already start you in that productivity mindset.
Yeah, I follow that. I make the bed. My better half never really did. So she's given in. She goes, "Okay, I know he's just going to make the bed. That's fine." It didn't end up in a war or anything like that. But yeah, I know that Brian Tracy wrote that book, Eat the Frog.
Yes, I love that book.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where if I see something, I'm like, ugh, and I'll think of it like, okay, it's time. Let's eat this frog and get it over with. And I will say, at least personally speaking, that the majority of the time, 2 things happen. Number 1, I realize it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. And 2, the relief that I feel that it's done is just amazing. And I can then go on to the next 2 or 3 things that I want to accomplish for the day. And I agree with you, with my energy level, my mornings are task. I don't want to say heavy because I don't load up my days, but I tend to steer anything that involves a lot of brain power and thinking and creativity in the morning. And then my afternoons, the runaway train is a great example. A lot of people end up getting their momentum and they're trying to wrap some things up. So that's when I find I tend to have more interruptions in the afternoons than I do the mornings.
Mm-hmm.
So I end up doing that way. And for a long time, I used to go into the office a lot earlier than anybody else, just so I could get the stuff done before anybody else showed up.
Yeah.
And then I adapted to that a little bit. It's like, I don't need to get up that early, because what it was doing is I realized it was making my days a lot longer than they needed to be, because I wasn't able to leave early because there was still things that needed to be done. Yeah. And I thought, okay, nice concept for me, but it's actually burning me out. And I thought, okay, let's change this. And it's made a big difference. And I just, like I said, and what you do is, pick 2 or 3 things that you want to get done and work on those and do your best to stay dedicated and deep work. Cal Newport wrote that book, Deep Work.
Yes.
Go into it and just do those things and get it done, finish. There's something to be said about finishing things. And
there's something and when you feel guilty when you don't, that's a horrible feeling to live in. Is, I still didn't do it, I still don't have it, or I need to, or I got to get someone to do that, or living in that. I think it's Brian Tracy calls it someday I'll. Like, don't live on someday I'll. Like, someday I'll do that hobby, or someday I'll write that report. Don't live there, because it's like the 8th day of the week. It never comes.
Or the 25th hour, it's
The
like
25th hour.
Yeah, it never shows up. So, is there anything else you think that people need to focus on when they want to tackle the time management that works for them?
Yeah, a couple shorter tips. Or one would be to do one thing at a time. I know that sounds like a duh, but multitasking is very overrated. They say that only 2% of the population can actually do that, and you might be in that 2%, but odds are you're not in that. Your brain can only process one thought at a time. That's when people say, I'm going to watch this webinar and I'm going to do my budget. It's like, no, your brain's either in the budget or in the webinar at that moment. So I like to think of multitasking as messing up two things at once. So you're actually lowering your quality instead of thinking you're trying to get ahead. So if you got a lot of tabs open on your computer, it's so small that you can only see like a dot or one letter, that might mean you have got a problem with this, and you just need to take care of that task, close the tab. Take care of the task, close the tab, because we tend to make mistakes when we get interrupted and we don't finish stuff with quality. So that's one. Delegation's a big one. If you're in a leadership role, your shoulders aren't big enough to carry everything yourself. So you've got to change your mindset from, I've heard Simon Sinek in his new book, The Infinite Game. He talks about leaders are responsible for the people who are responsible for the results. And this is a mind shift for a lot of producers who become leaders. They think they're responsible for the results. Well, yeah, maybe ultimately, but their number one focus should be on the people. And so we've got to offload some stuff that anybody can do just as well as we can, maybe even better. And we got to train them well enough that they can do it as well as we can, or maybe they've got a better way. So delegation's a big one. And then I'll give you one more, and that's the go with your biorhythms for the day. So not everyone is a morning person. There are night owls that may not help you at work all the time, but there are afternoon people. I'm an afternoon person. Like, give me a good 1 o'clock meeting. I'm like, yeah. Everybody else is like, what? Maybe it takes me that long to ramp up, and then everything after that is ramping down. But we all have a different biorhythm. They call it a chronotype as well. You can go on and take a survey, a book called The Power of When. You can do the powerofwhenquiz.com, and you can find out which animal you are with your chronotype, your sleep pattern, and when you are best on your game. Bring in your A game. So it's important to put those critical tasks in that sweet spot. It feels like you're doubling your impact when you do.
Yeah, there's so much gold in what you've said. I agree. The multitasking is just an absolute disaster, and you're trying to use both sides of your brain, and often that just doesn't work. The delegation, I was horrible at delegation before my own burnout story, and afterwards, the pendulum has definitely swung in the other direction, where now anything that lands on my desk, my first look at it is, okay, who besides me could do this?
Mm-hmm.
And if someone could do it, the next step, which initially it wasn't that step, but after that, it's like, okay, what else have I given that person? Is this going to overwhelm them by handing them this particular thing? Or can we utilize, the Eisenhower, method and go, okay, where does this land? And figure that out. And I was working with a client the other day, and something came in that was important and urgent. It was a strong time commitment as far as a grant application that a government agency typically likes to let you know about grant funding, and they give you about 5 seconds to get the application in. So, and of course they want 400 hours worth of documentation to put it with it. So, I'm not a big fan of how they do that, but I recognize that's the game. But that's, again, one of those examples of, learning to delegate and delegate right. And, the biorhythms thing is something that resonates with me as well, because I think people go through their work days and their lives, and they're doing things that don't line up with their energy levels at that time. Figure out where your energy is during the day. Figure out, and I'll definitely have in the show notes that link you shared. Figure out what makes you tick, where your energy levels are during the day, and align your day with those energy levels. You will find that you will accomplish more, and you'll accomplish things easier because you're operating in the rhythm of what the work you're doing is and matching it with the energy levels that are needed to be able to do that. And if you can do that, and it takes time, it's a lot of practice, and some days are easier than others, but when you do that, it makes such a huge, huge difference. And it's been amazingly different in my life. Once I figured out, okay, this is when I should do these things, and this is when I should book appointments, and this is when I should do this. And even my days have themes. I know what I'm going to do typically on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. I'm thankful that I'm able to structure my schedule in such a way that I can do those things. And by doing that, I don't have to think per se of, all right, what day is it? Okay, it's Wednesday. I know what I'm going to be doing today. And it just, and yes, there can be variances and all of that, but if you can keep those days lined up and structure them that way, you just control your life so much easier, and you operate in a state of flow, and it just makes it so much easier to get through things.
Yeah, that's a good point, because some people check their email first thing and then they go down a rabbit hole and they pick their head up an hour and a half later like, oh my goodness, it's already, 9:30, it's already 10. And all I've been doing is putting out fires in email, and it actually gets their stress levels up, their blood pressure goes up when they do that. Now, maybe you're in a job where you've got to be reactive and you've got to get on some stuff first thing. But for most people that are in leadership, they can probably ignore that email for a while and hit those priorities first. Then maybe block some time to check emails so it's reserved just for that. And then maybe stick your meetings in the afternoon or more relational time of leaning on door frames, and asking your people how they're doing and what are they working on, how can you help. And it just seems like, you can get in these ideal rhythms. You don't hit it every day, but it's sort of your goal.
Yeah, and once you do, it makes the other aspects of managing your time so much easier. It just makes it so much easier for everybody involved. So, Paul, I've loved our conversation today. Where can people find out more about you and this awesome work you're doing?
So my website is paulcasey.org. I don't do paulcasey.com because that's the British golfer. So paulcasey.org is where you can find my stuff on specifically time management related. I've written a little mini book called Maximizing Every Minute, and that is all of my time management hacks are in that book that I've either tried or taught. I also have an online program that has different openings throughout the year where we go deep into all these tools that I've talked about. And then I have a free gift for your listeners too, Michael, and that is a Control My Calendar checklist. If you just want to get control of your calendar and start this time management journey here this year, you can go to takebackmycalendar.com, takebackmycalendar.com, or if you're texting, you can text the word growing to 72,000. So you open a text message to 72000 and text the word growing.
That's awesome, and thank you for that, and I'll have that information in the show notes. So, Paul, great to connect with you again. Appreciate you, and love having a fellow advocate for people taking back their life and being able to spend the time the way that they want to spend it, because it makes life so much better.
Thank you so much, and everybody keep growing forward.
Hey, it's Michael again. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I really appreciate it. If you're like many people, you're dealing with some significant stress and possibly approaching burnout. I know how you feel. In 2009, my burnout led to a year of worst-case scenarios. I do not want that to happen to you. If you go to breakfastleadership.com, you can register for a free webinar on burnout prevention, as well as get a free checklist to have successful mornings. Start off each day the right way. Again, that's at breakfastleadership.com. Also, since you are a loyal podcast listener, I'm asking you to like, rate, and review my podcast on iTunes. I look at all the reviews and appreciate your comments, and it helps other potential listeners discover the content I have on the show. I appreciate you, and thanks again for listening.